We believe in the Genesis account of creation, Genesis 1:1. It hardly needs to be said that the place to begin is at the beginning. Still, many people have the habit of reading the last chapter first. If we study the Bible that way, we will be very confused. The best place to begin with it is at the beginning. There are, however, many who find it difficult to begin with Genesis. Some are put off by the language. They find it to be a bit stiff and somewhat antiquated. Others are discouraged because they bring to the study of this book certain concepts about God in the Bible which have been retained from their childhood. I call this security blanket theology. Most of us slept with a teddy bear or a security blanket when we were little, but discarded those when we grew up. Unfortunately, many have not discarded the security blanket ideas they had as boys and girls about God in the Bible. Instead, they have carried them over into adult life. These are the preconceived ideas that we impose on the Scriptures that make it difficult to understand even plain truth. Some others come to Genesis prejudiced by the widespread rejection of this book as unscientific in its concept. So they read the book, especially the first few chapters, with a sense of distrust. They read it simply to be informed about a book that is widely known, but they are prejudiced against it, and consequently they never really see what is there. They never really hear the words of the book. The first verse of Genesis begins with the greatest observable fact known to man, the existence of the universe, the heaven and the earth, Genesis 1:1b. And it links that to the greatest fact made known to Revelation, the existence of a God who creates. This simple verse brings together at the beginning of the Bible the recognition of the two great sources of human knowledge, what we call nature, the things which are discoverable by the five senses of our physical life, and spiritual revelation, the things which are discoverable only by a mind and heart illuminated and taught by the Spirit of God. These are the things that are spiritually discerned, as the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 2:14. Therefore, I would suggest that we read this Genesis account and carefully note what is said and what is not said. We must remember that Genesis is the first chapter of a story that ends with the coming of Jesus Christ and the declaration of the way God has ordained to release human life from sin, despair, and death, and to bring it into power, excitement, and grace. In other words, the God of Genesis is the God of the rest of the Bible. It is a completely false idea and one of those security blanket theologies to assume that God in Genesis is different from God in the rest of the Bible, and that His attitude toward humanity is different than that found in the New Testament. This is not true at all. This idea comes from isolating texts and using them to build a false picture of God. We find the grace of God shining out in Genesis as much as it does in the New Testament. The love of God, the compassion, the tenderness, the sweetness of God are shown as much in Genesis as they are anywhere in the Bible. If we read this book carefully, we will discover that God in Genesis is undoubtedly the same as God in the rest of the Bible. In the New Testament, He is the Father of Jesus Christ and the Father of all those who believe in Him. He has a Father's heart. Our first glimpse of God is as the Creator. That is the way we are introduced to Him in this beginning chapter of this beginning book of the Bible. The word Genesis means beginning, so it is a very apt title for this book. It begins simply, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. That is one of the most profound statements ever made in the hearing of men. If you think about it a bit, you will see that this is true. Surely this statement is exactly where the Bible ought to begin. It sums up in 10 English words, only 7 in Hebrew, the answers to 4 fundamental questions every person faces when he really begins to think seriously about his life and the universe in which he lives. We all begin life as a baby, and as babies we pay little attention to what's going on around us or to what the world is like. As we grow older, we start to notice the world, the sky, the sea, the wind, the birds, the flowers, the animals, and life around us. As we become aware of the world, we inevitably ask some questions about it. It is those questions which are answered for us in a very understandable way here, in these opening verses of the book of Genesis. There are 4 questions. First, what is all this? Driven by an insatiable curiosity, man has been attempting to answer that question ever since he first appeared on earth. He seeks to explore the universe and the world in which he lives. Second, how did it begin? The question of how is the question primarily which occupies science. Then, when did it begin? When did it all start? How long has the world been going on? Finally, we come to the great philosophical question, who is behind it? Who is responsible for the wonderful things we observe? These 4 questions are answered in this verse, and it serves as a tremendous introduction to the great themes of the rest of the Bible.